We recently repurposed one of my keynote talks into a successful webinar. If you or leaders in your organisation deliver talks and presentations, then maybe you have the perfect material to repurpose into an engaging webinar too. Listen on to find out more about what we did and why. You're listening to the Content 10x podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximise your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Content 10x podcast. I'm Amy Woods, the founder of Content 10x, and I am your host for this episode. So thank you very much for tuning in. Whether it's the first time, then welcome. It's great to have you here. Or you're a long-term listener, then welcome back. It is fantastic to be with you once again to share this episode. So this week, I'm going to be walking you through the process of repurposing a keynote or a talk into a webinar, because it's something we recently did and it was a fantastic opportunity. And the beauty is that a webinar goes on to provide so many repurposing opportunities. So I really couldn't resist sharing this content with you today. So in this episode, I'll cover why repurposing a talk into a webinar is effective, tips on how to repurpose your talk into a webinar, and also a little mention onto why and how you can then go on to repurpose the webinar as well. Before I get into the main content, just to mention, if you want content repurposing tips and guidance, industry updates, inspiring stories, and exclusive news delivered straight to your inbox every other week, then join thousands of marketers, business owners and creators and become a Content 10x insider. Head to content10x.com/newsletter. As I was saying, I hope you had the chance to join our recent webinar. If not, no worries. You can catch the replay on demand on our website. So just head on over to content10x.com/webinars. Now, the webinar is called The Power of Content Repurposing, How to Get the Maximum ROI from Your Content. And we really did get fantastic feedback from this session, so please do go check it out. Now, as I said, in this episode, I'm going to share with you the story behind it and how it became not just a presentation about repurposing, but a prime example of repurposing in action. You see, the content for our webinar was originally created for a keynote talk delivered at a number of live events, and boy did it undergo a transformation. Let's dive into why repurposing your talk into a webinar is a fantastic idea. Reason number one, it amplifies your reach. You've poured countless hours into crafting this keynote or talk or presentation, whatever it may be. And then by repurposing it into a webinar, you're extending its reach to a whole new audience. It's an opportunity to get your message in front of fresh eyes and ears. I can't even begin to tell you how much time I personally spend on putting together a new keynote talk, from the whole concept, the storyboarding of it, the content development, the slides, to practicing the delivery. Sometimes I even work with a speaker coach if it's a brand new talk and a big event. So with all that time, you have to find ways to do more with all that hard work. Of course, you can present the talk over and over at other events, which is something that I have done. But what more can you do? Now, I'm not saying everyone is the same or that we're only talking about keynotes at big events, but maybe you or maybe leaders in your organisation deliver talks internally or at small conferences or bigger conferences. Either way, if it's a talk and it's good content, then it deserves to get in front of as many of the right people as possible. So reason number one, it amplifies your reach. Reason number two, a webinar is a lead generation machine. So webinars are not just about sharing insights and then basically everyone logs off and that's the end of it. If you plan and prepare correctly, then they can be powerful lead generation tools too. So promote your webinar effectively and make it so that people sign up to the webinar so you get their email address. Make sure you know who is turning up to the webinar and you have a way of being able to contact them. And then reason number 3, you connect with your audience. So going live with a webinar offers more than just content delivery. It's an opportunity for direct engagement. There's something really special about offering to engage with people live on a set day and a set time. And if you host a Q&A session and interact with your audience in real time and provide that personal touch, then it really does leave a lasting impression. There could be someone, for example, who has been following you for years, who finally hops onto the webinar and can ask you questions during the Q&A. And it's just really nice to offer that amount of access. And obviously going live in a webinar opens up lots of transparency as well to your audience. And then reason 4, the gift of repurposing. So once your webinar is over, the repurposing journey has just begun. From blog posts to social media content, the possibilities really are endless. It's content that keeps on giving. After all, it's really hard work to run a live webinar, just like it's hard work to deliver a keynote or a talk at an event. So you see the pattern here. We want to get maximum ROI from all of that hard work. So there's 4 reasons why it can be great to repurpose a talk into a webinar. Now let's talk some strategy. So here's 4 tips for seamlessly repurposing your talk into a webinar. Tip number 1, know your audience and develop a targeted marketing plan. So before diving in, define your target audience for this webinar and tailor your marketing plan accordingly. Understand where they hang out online and how to capture their interest with your webinar. Also, allow plenty of time to market it, but not too much time as well. People don't tend to be too excited about a webinar that's, say, in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. So think about getting the balance right, or enough time to be able to allow people to commit and find space in their diary, but not too far out that it's just not going to excite or engage them. Tip number 2, revamp your content. So while repurposing, don't hesitate to tweak your slides and presentation flow. So you want to adapt the content to suit the webinar format and ensure it really does resonate with your virtual audience who attend your webinar. For example, I changed the opening and my intro, I changed the ending, I built in the Q&A session, I changed a few slides and a few stories that I shared. So this comes back to tip number 1. It's all about your audience, your webinar audience. They might not be the same as the live event audience that you originally created the slides for and the presentation for. So make sure that you make those adjustments accordingly. Tip number 3, choose the right platform. So with a plethora of webinar platforms available, pick one that aligns with you and with your audience's preferences. So we opted for Zoom for its familiarity and ease of use, and it works perfectly. But there's GoTo, there's Webinar Jam, there's Live Webinar. It really is an industry in itself. So choose the right one, and extra tip, make sure you do a few test runs on the platform, especially if it's new to you. Tip number 4, plan for repurposing. This will come as absolutely no surprise, as I've mentioned it already, and this show is all about repurposing. But don't stop at the webinar itself. Have a clear plan for repurposing the webinar content post-event, whether it's creating blog posts or repackaging the webinar for social media content. Really maximize the value of your webinar. And we have an episode coming up on repurposing webinars, so watch this space. We're going to share with you exactly what we did with repurposing the webinar that we delivered at the end of March. So next time you or someone in your company delivers a stellar keynote or presentation or talk, consider the potential of repurposing it into a webinar. It's not just about sharing insights, it's about maximizing your impact and extending the life of your content and generating leads. So there you have it, my top tips for repurposing a talk into a webinar. I hope that you can utilize these tips to create an awesome experience for your audience. And as I mentioned, if you didn't turn up to our live webinar and you're interested in checking that out, then head to content10x.com/webinars. And before I go, just to mention that if you need help with your content repurposing, then we at Content 10x offer a fully done-for-you content repurposing service. So just head on over to content10x.com/services to find out more about what we do and how we might be able to help you. So we can repurpose your webinars, we can repurpose event content, videos and podcasts, reports, white papers, any kind of valuable long-form content, and we are here to help you unlock the potential in that and release maximum ROI. Okay, so that's a wrap. All that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this episode. Happy repurposing, and I will catch you in the next one.